Story 1. As soon as we left the room, everyone starts laughing and asks Bob why he thought that joke was okay. He just shrugs and says, I thought it was funny. She said, please baby, I can't do it. I cleaned it up. You have to take it outside. I said, okay baby, I'm sorry between dry heaves. I got as far as the door and puked all over the door and the doorknob. I looked up at her and said, I'm sorry. She laughed. I puked again on the porch. I puked on the stairs. I puked on the driveway. I tossed the bag into the garage, then went back into the house, dry heaving until I got into the bedroom, the only room that didn't smell like puke. Dude was waiting for me on the bed, smiled and said, I fucking hate you, rubbed his neck and kissed him on the head. I said, okay baby, I'm sorry between dry heaves. I got as far as the do, and I puked all over the door and the doorknob. I looked up at her and said, I am sorry. She laughed. I puked again on the porch. I puked on the stairs. I puked on the driveway. I tossed the bag into the garage, then went back into the house, dry heaving until I got into the bedroom. It was the only room that didn't smell like puke. Dude was waiting for me on the bed. I smiled and said, I really hate you, rubbed his neck and kissed him on the head. Story 2. Over the summer, the pool where I work hired us lifeguards to help paint the pool, a job that had been delayed for years. We had to wear face masks because of the paint fumes, which made us look like Bane from the movies. A few weeks into the project, we all took our lunch break in the main office. Because we were lazy, the trash can was overflowing, and nobody wanted to take it out to the dumpster. So, we decided to call one of the newer lifeguards, H. He often forgot his shifts and was always late, even though he lived just a block away. We called him and asked where he was and if he knew his shift was starting now. Even though the pool had been closed for weeks, H fell for it and said he'd be there in 5 minutes. There are about 7 of us in the office. We all get up on desks and counters, doing this weird squat thing. Some of us have our masks on. One lifeguard, D, is up on the counter next to the door, right at face level with anyone who walks in. H should show up any second now. Everyone is giggling a little. The door starts to open. D is making a weird croaking noise and slowly leans in, thinking it's H, but it turns out to be some poor old man who just wandered in. This guy stares at us. I just need a schedule. We give him a schedule and apologize. He laughs nervously and leaves pretty quickly. By the time H shows up, we're all crying on the floor. He takes out the trash, calls us mean names, and ends up staying to work. My favorite memory from work by far. Story 3. Last year I was put into a class with a guy who was, well, a bit eccentric. He was actually pretty nice most of the time. Quite a nice dude nonetheless. You could have a normal chat with him without any trouble though. He wasn't big on following rules. He'd stroll into class with this portable hard drive full of video games like Doom and Tomb Raider and just start playing. If a teacher told him to stop, he would pause for a bit, but then go right back to gaming. He was a total nerd, which was kind of odd because he came from a rough neighborhood where he stood out a lot. There were a few crazy moments with that guy throughout the year. One time in class, we had to do presentations about how it affects society or something like that. When it was his turn, he started his presentation. Some guys in the class were talking to each other while he was up there, and at one point one of them tried to get their attention. For whatever reason, this guy, let's call him Shan, thought it was okay to stop his presentation and call out the guy. Fair enough, the guy was being rude and not paying attention to him. But Sean interprets the wave as a Nazi salute, asks the guy what the heck were you doing there, Heil Hitler or something, and throws out a salute of his own. Our teacher was a pretty strict black woman and didn't react, just told him to continue and carry on. Another time, we're in a class with this teacher who could be like a perfect stereotype of the awkward uncle always cracked bad jokes. We get in and this class is no different. But this is Shan's first time in this class. After the teacher finished telling another of his awful jokes, Shan turns around from his game, gets the teacher's attention and says, "What do you call a Japanese pedophile?" Fukem Young. Once again, total silence. The teacher acts as though he didn't hear it and continues with the class as normal. As soon as we left the room, everyone starts laughing and asks Sean why he thought that joke was okay. He just shrugs and says, I thought it was funny. There were lots of other little instances like these scattered throughout the year, and by the end we all loved him and were sad to see him go. The course only lasted a year, and he told us he wouldn't be returning Toto any more courses. He was like 21, and it turned out he had been there doing courses similar to the one we did for the previous 3 years or something, and all the teachers had grown familiar with his antics, which is why they all responded so calmly and never gave him any shit for it. I really do miss Bob. On top of all the funny, weird shit he did, he was a nice dude too. Story 4. This isn't the craziest story, but it's my absolute favorite, and it's 100% true. I have 4 cousins who are birth siblings. They were adopted by my aunt and uncle about 23 years ago. The oldest boy was maybe 8 years old at the time, and the 2 younger sisters were around 4 and 5. They had just moved in, and my aunt and uncle wanted to introduce them to some kids in the neighborhood, the Cook family, who lived down the street. So they set up a dinner date on the calendar. The oldest boy was just learning how to read and was new to the house. He got his sisters to pack their toys, and they got caught trying to sneak out of the house. My aunt, who was still a stranger to these kids, asked them why they were leaving. The oldest boy asked her, "Why does the calendar say Cook Kids for dinner?" I can't imagine how scared I would have been at 6 years old if my new mom had that written on her calendar, but the story is just so cute for some reason. Story 5. My first year of college was pretty lonely because I was 18 and had never had a boyfriend. I was a photography major, taking random photos with my big DSLR camera, when I noticed a group of good-looking guys throwing a football near me. One of the hot guys came over and introduced himself to me. I quickly realized where this was going. Then he said, "My friend over there thinks you're cute." The one in the white shirt, I saw a guy in a white shirt ... and he was almost a midget. He had toed like 4 Ase with short arms and legs. According to the internet, a midget is legally an inch shorter. Anyway, I didn't want to laugh and turn him down, so we became friends. Elle even snapped a photo of him. One day I had no classes for 3 hours, and it was pouring outside, so everyone was inside with nowhere to sit. He said his house was 20 minutes away and that his aunt was home so we can go there. I hesitated a lot, but hey, why not? His house was half an hour away and in the middle of Farmville, bumblefuck. Completely secluded in the woods, with it being dark and rainy. I felt this was a sign. We got there, and he lied. Nobody was home. Red flag 1. I put my backpack down, and I noticed pictures of him wrangling baby cows and shit. I asked him WTF that was, and apparently he a cowboy in competitions. He was a midget cowboy. Literally the most fucking random thing ever. While we were watching TV on the sofa, he suddenly got a boner and tried to force himself on me. He was trying to hold me down. After struggling, I jumped off the couch and pulled out my box cutter, which I carried for situations like this. I told him to drive me back to school or I would stab him. He dropped me off, yelled cunt, and drove away. Later, his friend told me that he uses his shortness to pick up girls, and they usually pity him and have sex with him. I still have the photo I took of him on my camera. When my friends don't believe me, I show them the picture. I still carry that box cutter with me everywhere I go. TL Doctor, a short guy with a small dick, tried to force himself on me.